So a little over 77 feet. She's 48-ton light ship and just under 4,500 litres of diesel in 2 tanks. We're running triple Volvo IPS 1050s. They're 800 horsepower each. So the question is, what's she like for a long cruise, speeds and fuel consumption, and what is she like for a fast cruise around the dock, anchoring? Keep watching and I'll let you know. It always feels so powerful on these big boats, triple engines running, it's just great.
We've got a hot tub. That's going to be in the walkthrough.
It's quite enjoyable. So this boat will carry up to 25 people for the day, or 8 guests plus 3 crew for overnight. She's 48,000 kilograms, so 48-ton light ship. We got 4,450 litres of diesel in 2 tanks, and I note that they're mounted on the centre line, so that should be quite positive for our weight and balance. We're running triple Volvo IPS, so they're the counter-rotational forward-facing drives, and they are the 1050, so they're 800 horsepower each. Water and waste, I don't really remember what it is, but what I'm going to do right now is get rolling into your distance cruise, because a lot of you have been pointing out that I don't always cover that, and I get too excited and go straight for the fast stuff, and then we'll do some fast speeds and turns a little bit later in the video. So, alrighty. I've got my fuel flow set to all, so that's giving me the flow on all 3 motors. Currently cruising at 7 knots. I'm just going to bring the speed up just a tad and then talk to you about what we're consuming. I'm seeing 30 litres on the dial at 7.5 knots speed. That is total. And then let's just bring that up to something a little bit faster, just to simulate some of you guys transiting up and down the coast. Just coming through 8.5 knots there at 36 litres consumption, and let's just get to 10 knots. I've got the doors closed, we've got the air conditioning on, we're running the gen set obviously to power the AC, so this is the noise levels, and I'll note that from down below the noise levels are very low. We will go to the flybridge a little bit later in this video when we start testing out the maneuvering in a parking scenario. 9.7 knots, just about to hit 10 knots, and I'm seeing 46 litres an hour consumption. So let's just nudge it to that actual 10 knots before we accelerate. Just want to point out, nice little Portuguese port. I think it's a Portuguese port, but fort, not port, sorry. Just in the background. I deliberately drove past that so you guys could enjoy it. 10 knots. 10 knots, 50 to 58 litres, variable as I go through the waves there. So that's what we're getting for, I would say, a lot of you are going to want to achieve on a distance cruise. Now I'm going to accelerate. I'm actually just going to commit to the acceleration here. So coming up through 1500 revs, watching the speed climb. I could see the bow raising on acceleration there. I'm at 15 knots. She really, just feel that. I'm just gently increasing the power on the throttle, but she really does accelerate quite quickly. I got to say, you do feel you got a lot of power there. I'm not giving it full noise on the levers. We're sitting at 25 knots already, and acceleration was, you could feel the power, smooth, noise levels once again really, really quiet. Got some hindrance to our visibility with these pillars. You're going to get that on all boats of this style, so really if you want the better visibility you go up to the other helm. So just sitting on 26 knots, I'm going to increase that to a little bit more where I feel like the boat's flattening out a little bit. Okay, 27, there you go. From 27 up you start to notice the bow lowering. I haven't done any trim on the trim tabs just yet, and I'm going to start putting the boat through a port turn, and we'll just do a gradual turn. Okay, She feels like a big boat. Okay, no surprises here, guys. 50 plus tons. She, with the Seakeeper off, she does heel quite in a sporty manner, and I'm doing that turn right now at 28 to 29 knots. So that feels quite good. That's quiet, not much noise at all in this cabin right now. You could hold conversation. I'm not raising my voice, and I am needing to lower my sight lines to see out the port window, but I could also lean forward and see through the bigger windscreen up the front here. So that's another option you have if you're doing a sporty turn from the lower helm. I'm going to straighten the boat out in a second, and then we'll give it some wide open throttle. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit of trim tab down, and normally that sort of raises the bum a little bit. We'll just see what happens there. 28, 29 knots with some trim tab down, going through my waves. I'm raising those trim tabs, 28, and now I'm 27. So you definitely get a speed increase with a little bit of tab down, as I'd expect you would. Okay. Lovely. Okay, so we've got about, how many people do we have on board? 10 people? Yeah, we've got 10 people on board today. So this is a true test in terms of the boat's capabilities. I'm sitting on a wide open throttle, varying my trim tabs, getting a speed of between 28 and 30 knots. And I'm going to put the boat into a hard turn to starboard now. So just checking all around. I've got one boat to port, no boats to starboard, clear water. 3, 2, 1, full power and hard turn. That's a full lock turn there, guys. Plenty of visibility out to starboard. She really leans in with the Seakeeper off. This is quite enjoyable. You always feel so powerful on these big boats, triple engines running, it's just great. So now I'm going to talk to you about the fuel flow at some of these faster speeds. At the wide open throttle, putting load on the motors, I'm doing 460 litres. So let's back that off and give you some sensible numbers in a second. We'll just complete this turn. And, okay. Straightening the boat out, coming back to 27 knots. Fuel flow dropping through 400 of all three motors, 26 knots. Playing with the tabs. 388 litres. A little bit too much tab down there. And I'm going to say about 370 litres, all three motors, for that 25, 26 knots speed. And now let's slow down. Okay, going through 23 knots, 300 litres. We're still on the plane. We'll do full tab down as we slow down to see what that does. I'm going through my own waves here, so the boat's going to rock around a little bit with the Seakeeper off. 22 knots, 300 litres even, so that's 100 per motor. Going through some decent waves here, no water coming up over the side, so that's totally fine. And let's just take it all the way back to 20 knots. And now we're down in that 230 litres, all three, with some trim tab down at 20 knots. So that might be one of those speeds that you cruise around for the day in, because you're still going to kill some miles at 20 knots and a fuel consumption in that 230, 250, 260 as you go through the waves. So that's very interesting. I'm going to come off the plane now. And what we're going to do, we're going to cut to our next location, and I'm going to drive from the fly bridge, and we'll test the maneuverability at slow speeds, the visibility, and then at the end of the video we're actually going to, after some anchoring, we're going to test it alongside a dock, because we have got the wing station out the back. So we've got the one wing station on this boat. We'll have a play with that, see how it feels. And it is also worth noting these windows just here on both sides drop down. So if you did need to communicate to someone forward who is helping you out with the anchor, it's going to be fine. If you wanted to stay in the air conditioning, that's definitely an option. Okay, let's get up to the flybridge and see how she feels. Okay guys, obviously when you're leaving the lower helm, just factor in your situational awareness and who is around you, because it is a bit of a walk. She's a big boat. When you get here, you've left the other helm with the throttles in neutral, and then you come up here and do station select. So it's the top middle button, and then that gives you control of this helm. Always do a check. We'll just check that we have control, which we do, and now we've got control of the helm. So the flybridge. This is the fun place. This is where you got the good visibility. This is where you got the wind in your hair. And this is where you have really good sun protection on this particular model. This roof extends forward to about here and all the way out. So if you're in the hot countries, don't worry. You can get an optionally opening roof, is my understanding. This one does not have that. For our part of the world, I'm talking about Australia, that is, that's awesome because we don't really need that much sun. So this helm chair here has the flip up bolster. I'm actually going to flip it down and just feel it from the seated position. You could definitely get two friends on either side, I'd say, with you on this one. And probably for my short legs, I would sit forward on the seat, but they're definitely catering to the larger people. That's not a problem. I did note that the helm seat downstairs has got electric forward and aft. This one looks like it's fixed, but you've got oodles of leg room for the bigger people. So I'm not going to drive fast up here because we know what that's all about already. We still have the trim tab controls, and essentially everything repeated up here is what we had downstairs. But I am just going to point out what I can see and then how the boat feels in a close quarters maneuvering scenario. So if you were backing it into a dock, you're going to need a reversing camera. If you needed to do it from up here, that is. We don't need that because we have the wing station downstairs. So that's quite important. If you're ordering a boat and you need to back it into a marina, just consider that. Because these extended flybridges do not allow you to have any aft visibility. And we've even got a hot tub. That's so cool. That's going to be in the walkthrough. Let's just try throttles only before we go to joystick, and then just feel how much power we have in a turn. And for a big boat, 77.1 something feet LOA, this maneuvers like a 45 footer. If you are coming out of a smaller flybridge motor yacht, particularly of an IPS drive system, you are actually going to feel pretty at home driving this. Now I know many of you are probably going to run a captain, and that's fine too. If put it this way, if he's got a little bit of experience on something of around the 50-foot length, I don't see this as being too much of a challenge. Let's just go to docking mode. Okay, so I've gone neutral, press docking, and now the joystick should have control. I'll just double check that. Yes, it does. Now, depending on the version you get, the older ones you have a high and a low mode. The newer ones, it actually just goes into high mode the more power you apply on the joystick. I'm just going to do this from a standing position. This is really nice. One of the things you've got to love about a joystick is the ability to turn your body 180 degrees and swap hands, right hand to the left hand, and you don't need to do that calculation in your head as you would need to do with the throttle. So there's no confusion there. So if I wanted to slide the thing this way and have good visibility aft, I can just use the other hand, use that joystick, and let's just feel her moving. Okay, I'm in low mode at the moment. All three motors. I would say only two motors are going to activate in this maneuver. I don't actually know the answer to that. If you do, please jump into the comments and let me know. Controllable. Okay, now let me just do it from the other side. One of the things of note is that we are so far away from the engine room on this boat that you don't really hear the motors. So you are kind of relying a lot more on what you observe visually, because you can hear them, but they're just not particularly obvious. So that's fine. They're a little bit more obvious as you make your way down to the wing station, I would assume. So now I've just selected high mode, and I'm just going to do a 360 on the spot to starboard. As I was saying, plenty of power available to us in the high mode, lots of control, and even though a boat of 77 feet long seems quite daunting, from up here, if you're used to something 45, 50, 55 feet, I really don't think it's going to be much of a transition for you. It's definitely something you could come up through the range and drive yourself if that's important to you. Okay, let's go put the anchor down and see what we learn. So anchoring the boat can be done from up here at the helm and the lower helm. You just have a safety, then up-down switch, and also foot switches down on the bow itself. The bow roller is sufficiently cleared of the bow, so when we drop the anchor, we didn't see any problems there. I'll be cutting to that footage so you can see that right now. Plenty of hold in this anchor as well. Come on down and let's talk to you about the wing station. So a little bit of a walk, obviously. Leave the flybridge helm in neutral, come down here. Just the one wing station as an option on this boat, so it's on the starboard side. So let's just double check our viz. So point the camera forward, Marley, so everyone can see what I see, and then let's look around, and particularly looking down and aft. So that's your viz to the back of the boat. Taking command, it's just a process of pressing the button here and then pressing this button here gives you control. We've got horn, and we also have anchor operation from here as well. You can see manual firebuoy operation as well. So that's what I see, and we'll again cut to a little bit of footage as we park it in and alongside the dock. It's perfectly sufficient. Naturally, favour the starboard side if you can, because it's going to be right there. So what else do we have? The drop-down wings. They are operated by these buttons, one on port, one on starboard. Again, they've got a safety, and then they've got an operation. So you have to have your finger on the safety before the thing will move, and quite clearly you want to deploy the safety rails as well. So a couple of minutes to put that in place, but it's only 1, 2, 3, 4 verticals, and then you just got this, Dyneema or whatever it is, this rope, you just clip it in at either end. Not too complicated, super useful. So that's all what it is. Deploying the sunshade, this aft one is electric. Come down these stairs here, and let's just talk about the garage. So once again, you got a safety, this button here, and press up, and then that's going to operate the garage, which is ginormous, and you'll see that in a second. And whilst I'm at it, I think I can do it at the same time, I'll drop the platform. So finger on the safety and down. So the back one's the platform, the forward one is the garage. And hopefully you can see these stairs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 step stairs, stainless surrounds, they automatically deploy, and then we've got some air vents which allow the water to pass through. I believe it's about 1,000 kg capacity. Don't hold me to that, I could be wrong. But check out this garage, which we will see in a second. I'm gonna go max open, there we go, and max down. So that's all the way down, and this is all the way up. I'm 5'7", I can't currently touch the top of that, so you big blokes won't have an issue. Is this a shower? I think it is. I think this is a fancy Euro style shower. I'm not actually too sure, but just have a look at this. This is probably 300 kilograms, I'm guessing. So a jet ski, you could take 1, 2, maybe 2 people and an esky on the back of this jet ski. So that's a decent size. And then we've got all our toys here on port. It's clearly got enough space and designed for an actual rib. So you could put a rib in here, jet ski. Obviously, it works quite well with all the boat toys, fenders, floaty thingamajiggies, because you can also have a cradle on the platform itself to deploy in the water as so. So yes, you can have 2 tenders essentially. It's really, really handy, big boat like this. And your winch operation is just over here on the starboard side, and you can see you've got 2 of these. That's holding this ginormous door open, and it's even got some insulation up here, so it's a little bit bougie. Some cross-stitched leather, I think it is. Gives it a nice feel. So that's cool. Cleats aft, shore power in on the port side, and actually on the starboard side is engine room access, but your primary engine room access is through here, and I cover all this in detail in the walkthrough, so I'm not going to go down there right now. If you're interested in that, separate video. I think that's it from an operational perspective or side of this boat. Oh, here you go. We've got our winches for pulling it in to the dock. That's more relevant to Europeans, and you've just got the foot pad there to operate the one directional winch, and then just use the cleat like so. I'm going to give you this background. This is great. How good's Brazil? We're in Brazil, by the way. Did I mention that? That's the Schaefer 770, guys. If you're interested in what the layout is and the detail of the interior, it's a separate video. So check that out on my channel page. It's super interesting, super bougie, and it's a boat, I believe, that you could drive either yourself, if you know what you're doing, or with a crew. So few moving parts. Definitely a crew is going to make it a lot easier for you. What do you think? Let me know in the description below or in the comments section. I'm really interested. Just keep watching. There's going to be a lot more stuff coming from Brazil this week. It's going to be fun. You're all legends. I'll see you in the next one.